How's she going, boys? Mike here. Welcome back to Grampie's Workshop. I'm glad you dropped in. Today we're going to continue our work on our 3.5 horsepower Briggs & Stratton vertical shaft engine. You know, the little engine that we know and love so well. But before we get into that, I just want to make something clear. I'm no expert on rebuilding engines. Don't ever think that I'm an expert. What I do here in the channel and what I say about these little engines as I'm working my way through them, that's just me expressing my thoughts and opinions. It's got nothing to do with any kind of formalized training or anything like that. I had an old engine that was sitting out behind the shed there for about 3 or 4 years. It was probably destined for the junk heap. I put that engine in the shop here and cleaned it all up, stripped it apart, and now I'm rebuilding it. So if the engine works when I'm finished, hey, Bob's your uncle. If it doesn't work, well, it was going in the scrap heap anyways. But I'm learning a lot while I'm doing this, so even if I'm doing it totally wrong, I'm finding out what's inside the engine, you know, what makes it tick, things like that. So I hope that's of value to you as well. And hey, like I say, if the engine runs when I'm all done, all the better, right? And another thing too I want to mention, I have a very good friend, very good YouTube friend. He has a channel, Steve Robb Reviews and Steve Robb Podcasts, 2 great channels. I suggest you check them out. Steve's very knowledgeable, very entertaining, and he makes you think a lot too with the topics that he discusses, especially in the Steve Robb podcasts. Anyways, I would recommend Steve's channels highly, and the reason I'm mentioning Steve is because Steve suggested to me that I create playlists to include all the episodes on rebuilding this engine. So I've done that. I've created a playlist. It's called All About Small Engines, and I'll put a link to that playlist up here. And if you want to watch this series from the start, you can click on the playlist and you can see all the episodes. And they're still coming because I think this is episode 7. There's probably going to be at least 2 more, maybe more, I'm not sure. But anyways, enough about that. Let's go over in the corner there and start puttering with that little engine again. So to put the head on, we have a head gasket. And for a head gasket, I'm not putting any gasket glue on the head gasket. The head gasket is made to withstand high heat, and it compresses to form a good seal because we don't want any leaks around the cylinder head. So here's the cylinder head, so then that goes on like so. And it's interesting too to see where they decided to put the spark plug hole. And when you look in the cylinder head, the spark plug sparks right here. So this is the intake valve. It opens, the gas air mixture comes in, and it compresses, and it sparks right about there. So right in the middle of all that air is where they want the spark to come, and that's where it comes. When I was checking for torque specs for the head bolts, I had a hard time finding torque specs for anything on the engine, on this engine in particular. So like when I put the cap on the piston, I just tightened that. There is a torque spec for it, but I couldn't find it, or I expected there to be a torque spec for it. Same with the bolts that hold the sump cover on. Couldn't find anything on that. But I did manage to find something for head bolt torque, and it was 18 foot-pounds. So that's what we're going to put them to. I don't know whether that's right or not, but anyway, that's what we're going to try. So the other thing too about head bolts, not only should you torque them down, but you should torque them down in a specific sequence because you don't want to twist the head or deform the head in any way. Because what you want to do is you really want to maintain a good airtight seal around the head so that we don't lose any compression, and that also for vacuum, you want to create a good vacuum in there because you need to input the air fuel mixture, right? And that's only put in there by vacuum. So once again, I'm not sure the sequence in which to tighten these, but I'm just going to go in a crisscross pattern. I think for most things, I guess a rule of thumb would be always go in a crisscross pattern when you're tightening something. The other rule would be start at the center and work to the edges. So that's what we'll do with this head. And another rule of thumb, I don't know if these are real, like, legit laws or not, but It's just, you know, things that I've experienced over the years, and not being taught this, but just sort of experiencing it from seeing the work being done on different equipment. Like, I'm going to go on a crisscross pattern from the center to the edges. So I'm going to start with this one and go here, 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 right? And like, I'm not going to start, the torque is 18 foot-pounds, I'm not going to torque that down to 18 foot-pounds to start with. I'm going to snug that one down, and then I'll snug this fella down. And then I'll snug this guy, and then this guy, and then this guy, and then this guy. So what I'm trying to do, and then this guy, and then here. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to go from center outwards and then bring them up slowly to the proper torque settings. And again, is this the right way to do it? Who the heck knows? Not me, that's for sure. So a little tighter, a little tighter. Oh, should go this side first. So you just keep rotating, going as opposite as you can until they're all tight. So once again, pretty tight, pretty tight, pretty tight, pretty tight. Okay, now I'm going to get my torque wrench out and start to torque those down a little bit. Now if you don't have a torque wrench, and I've done this before, just tighten them up. Tighten them up, you know, like, you know that, well, I don't know what 18 foot-pounds is, but you know that, well, that's pretty good, but hey, I can get a little bit more on it, so tighten her up. But if I'm going to go by the spec, and it says 18 foot-pounds, so I have a torque wrench here that it's pretty hard to read the numbers on it, but let me see, that's 10, that's 15, 16, 17, 18 foot-pound, right about there, I'm thinking. Okay, now let's just see how close I was on these torque values. Now with any torque wrench, especially these ones, there's some torque wrenches where you just pull till you see the value. There'd be a dial indicator on it or a pointer. On these ones you just pull it till it clicks. It only has to click once before it's torqued, so once it clicks you don't have to pull it anymore. So that never clicked yet, but I'm going to just stop there. Oh, that one clicked. That one clicked. That one clicked. Okay, so now this one didn't, so let's just go here. There, that clicked. So they're all clicking pretty good. So I'm going to guess we're torqued down. So the next thing I want to do is I want to put this valve cover in here. So this is the valve cover. It's part number 8 when I marked them all. The little reed valve, that goes on the inside. So it'll go something like that. So I'm going to put a little bit of gasket cement on this gasket. The kit came with 2 of them, which was strange, but only need 1, but anyways. So I want to put gasket cement on this just because this is going to be containing oil from within the crankcase. So again, just a little light film along here. I want to be careful around this hole because this hole is part of the exhaust gas recycling. I got a little bit in that hole. I don't want that. Okay. So now this gasket goes on like this. Then I'll put a little along the edge of this, of the valve cover. So now that valve cover goes on here, and I'm going to check my parts manual to see what size bolts go in there. I think it's these fellas, but I'm just going to check my parts manual. Okay, so I'm looking at the parts manual to see what size screws I use, and I see that there's the breather, and then there's the gasket, and there's the screw, and it says number 10. So I look over here, number 10, it says screw, breather assembly. Doesn't give me any size, so I guess I'm free to use whatever I want. So just snug those up. They don't have to be singing tight, that's for sure. Alright, one other thing, this passageway here is part where the exhaust gas go from the crankcase and circulate around from the valves here, circulate back to the crankcase. So I have a gasket for that, and the gasket is a cork gasket, and it's oil impregnated, so no gasket cement on that. So that's going to go on there, and then the cover goes on top of it. And then I have 4 screws to hold that in place. So we'll set those in, tighten them up, and no, I don't think there's any specific torque rating on these, because I'm putting these on a cork compressible gasket, just as long as they're snug. You don't want to squeeze the daylights out of that gasket. And this is just like a sheet metal cover, so it's easily bent, so you don't want to put a lot of torque on them. So we'll just tighten these up a little bit more than finger tight. So for our engine now, we have put the breather cover on, we put the head on, torqued that down, and we put our exhaust gas recycling passageway cover on it. So not bad. Next step on this now is we're going to start to assemble the crankshaft or the flywheel and put some timing and ignition systems on it. Getting the head on there, that was a big step, eh? We're getting closer to the end. A little tricky putting the head on because we wanted to make sure we torqued it down evenly. We didn't want to get it, you know, like more stress on one side than the other to sort of deform the head, because we want that head to stay nice and flat so it'll make a good seal on the top of the cylinder, because you know, you have to have good compression, and that's what that seal is all about, getting that head on, keeping it nice and flat. And good compression equals good vacuum, and you need good vacuum to get the air and the fuel in there. So it's all, you know, one thing builds on another, and that's the way she goes, I guess. Hey, if you're new to the channel, I'm so glad you dropped by. It's always great to have new visitors in the shop, and I welcome you back anytime. Anytime you want to come to the shop, you're more than welcome. And for my regular viewers, thanks a lot. It's always a treat when you drop by the shop as well. So I hope everybody has a great week. Don't forget, thumbs up me. I love comments, so leave some comments as well. And we'll talk to you.